Hi, Ryan. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being on my LinkedIn Live.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to do this for a bit. I know I came on your show already, and then I really wanted you to come on my show, and then we kind of like, scheduling conflicts. So I'm glad that you're finally here. So anyway, so
I
let's get
knew we'd do this. I knew we'd do this eventually.
yes, finally. Oh, another Ryan's online. Ryan Noble Cesarelli. Hi, Ryan.
Right. How's it going?
Yeah, okay. So Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself first? What do you do? And then I know you said you kind of do two things. You have marketing and the financial advisor. So why don't you share more about what you do and then how do you work as an advisor and how do you work as an advisor host?
Yeah. So I guess, wear two hats in a sense of something I did where I was working when I was with LPL, and I'm moving into the RIA space now. But that just as me sticking to an advisor. I was with a small business and I did a lot of the marketing, did a lot of the business stuff and infrastructure, and it made me grow as an advisor but also grow as a business owner, so it's something I feel like I could pass on. I got lucky, I think, and came into an established business of a CFP who had 20 years of experience, and he had a pretty decent process as he was already building it while I was coming in, and he was really ironing it out, so I had the experience of being able to help him do that but also learn, and now I like to share that with advisors as well, take advantage of that myself. you know I like to put how I consider the two hats. I like to put people through a planning process and advisors through a planning process. So it's kind of the same thing. I think it's all about kind of discovery and asking questions to find out where I can help people, add value.
Hmm. Oh, Nick says hi.
Hey, Nick, how's it going,
Good to
man?
see you.
Good to see you.
All right, awesome. So
Nick's
good.
awesome.
So why don't we talk about I know we talked a little bit about your financial planning. So why don't you tell me more about tell your audience more like who do you serve most? Like what are your typical clients like?
Yeah, so it's funny because my experience comes from, we did a lot of special needs planning, and we did a lot of retirement planning, traditional retirement of people looking to retire, and then of course as I started grabbing my footing, I started helping people who are my age, helping consider like my wife's brother is a lawyer, and ended up making a lot of money, so while he doesn't have assets under management, he does, he could use a financial plan, so that's something that I help him with, and help something with younger individuals who are my age, who are making money and they don't know what to do with it. So I like to help a lot of different groups of people, but where I'm focusing still is my retirement, and then the 30-year-old who is just getting into, what do I do outside of just my 401k kind of situation.
Got it. Someone asked a question. I don't know if this is relevant. It said, please discuss the demand generation program as well. Is that something you can talk about?
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Okay,
Please discuss
sorry.
the demand generation program. I'm not sure.
Yeah, please, can you give more information on what that is? Okay, so let's talk about the people who
I'm
are
interested.
me too. Let's talk about the people who are retiring. So why don't you
Yeah.
yeah, explain more. So like how old are the typical people who come to you when they're about to get ready for retirement? When should they start going to financial advisor? Like 5 years before retirement, 10 years before retirement, so at least they can get a good grasp of like, if they need to catch up more, then so what is it about 5 years before retirement, their planned retirement is the best time, or like can they come to you maybe within a year of retiring? Is that too short of a time frame?
I mean, you can also come anytime. I don't want people to feel bad if they're retiring in a year. But obviously, I feel the earlier the better, because the longer you start planning, the quicker you go to somebody where you can kind of delegate that thinking process and delegate where your money should go and how things should play out, what your goals are and how you can match them up. I just think I find with retirees, a lot of people are going to either seminars or watching webinars, and they're just grabbing massive amounts of information online, and they have a good grasp of what the market means and what money is, but they don't know what to do with everything, and how everything's going to end up, and then they
Got
worry
it.
about politics and the emotions come into it. So what I really like to do is bring a more calming organization to the process, and that's why I love the financial planning process, and sitting down with people and really focusing on taking a couple meetings to figure out what makes you tick and what you want. And just to give a a quick answer, I would say, 5 to 10 years, I think would be a good guess. But
Mhm.
I'm finding that if I can meet, the right 30-year-old, then I can also set that person up for success much, much earlier because I can tell them the money habits that they should be picking up right now that will benefit them when they're 60.
Okay, Hafiz just say demand generation refers to the comprehensive program of sales and marketing initiatives that aim to generate interest for your product or service, nurture high fit prospects into customers, and retain those customers for the long term. Okay, I don't
I
know
guess
what
he
that
just
is.
means demand. I guess he just means demand generation in general, like the term demand generation in terms of, I guess, like you're marketing to the point where you're creating demand for your product. And I don't know if that's what he means. So that's something I've actually been looking a little bit about. There's somebody
Mm-hmm.
else I follow on LinkedIn, Chris Walker, who's a really cool guy, and he talks about this all the time. He's really big on
Okay,
demand generation,
Chris
and
Walker. Okay.
he has a podcast, and he's big on software as a service products,
Mm-hmm.
and he just talks a lot about focusing on the right metrics to follow when you're marketing. So
Mm-hmm.
it is interesting. It's not something that I feel, I guess, extremely comfortable speaking on right now, but I
Mm-hmm.
know it's real, so I can at least.
Yeah. All right, Hafiz, we're not the expert on that, okay? So we can't talk more about that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I mean, to
yeah,
me,
I'll
it's just
go.
the
Yeah.
concept of realizing that you're
Okay.
creating demand over time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just like you building your followers and building everything.
Yeah.
You're creating a demand for your services, and the demand generation comes from
Yep.
people who keep following you, watching these lives, seeing the value you provide. They realize how you can grow, and they want to do that too. And then so
Yep.
to me, it's just the concept of marketing. And if you do it right, I think everybody should be trying to do some version of demand generation.
Mhm. Got it. Okay, so why don't we talk about okay, so about retiring. So let's say what would you advise someone in generally for employee versus self-employed if they want to be retired comfortably? Like besides maxing out their 401k, possibly maxing out their Roth IRA if they could, or they can just do a backdoor Roth IRA, like if
Mhm.
they make too much money. So what other things would you want them to do to be prepare themselves for retirement so they can have enough retirement? So maybe we can start with like what are some of the typical retirement income sources when people retire?
Yeah, so I'm also big about where you put things in terms of the account, whether it be individual or it be Roth or traditional. And I find a lot of people end up in their pre-tax traditional IRA. So I usually am suggesting to put into a Roth while they still have the opportunity, assuming the income is there. Excuse me, like you mentioned, a backdoor Roth, if it's applicable and if it's possible. And sometimes people have, and most of the time these days, people have a Roth 401k option. So it's something that I may look at in terms of depending on how close they are to retirement. Roth may not be the option if somebody's 3 years out, but again, if you're 10 years out, then that could be something where you're adding that other tax bucket. Just because we can all agree that taxes change, it's something we at least have to think about every 4 years and wondering what the tax code is as they talk about it. So we try to be as realistic. And I may lean to the Roth a little bit just because I like the idea of paying no tax and having full control.
Yep.
But I
Okay.
also like the three buckets in the terms of saying that we don't exactly know what's going to happen in the future. So let's spread out and diversify, just like we would our
Yep.
investments. Let's
Exactly.
diversify our buckets in terms of the tax thing as well.
Okay. So you said three different buckets. So raw, traditional, and what's the third one?
Like in an individual account where you're
Okay.
taxed ongoing, like
Got
throughout
it.
the year, and
So
dividends and interest and
got
capital
it.
gains if you sell stuff.
Yeah, on the regular brokerage account. So what about
Yeah.
rental properties? Like what's your opinion on that one for people who want to have rental properties as their retirement income source?
So I'm gonna say something that I think, like outside of money wise, I think rental properties are a great idea. I think rental
Mm,
properties work for a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people kill with real estate, and they make a lot of money. So I'm never gonna
yep.
take away from that. But what I'm gonna tell everybody, and the thing that I would say honestly is, it's a huge headache, and it's really hard, and it's annoying. And
Okay.
people who rent, it is
Yeah.
like it can be very frustrating. So usually it's not the first property. Now you hear
Yeah.
about these situations where somebody has a tenant for 10 years and they're not messing up the carpet, so you have to redo it and do painting every year and stuff like that. Like I said, those are great situations. Then you're making money and you're calculating it. But I've seen people chase in court and try to kick them out, and you take the sheriff there, and then they say, oh, my outlet doesn't work, and you say it's not up to code, and then you're back in, you have to fill the forms out correctly. Of course, you can have people manage your properties, but I say take it very lightly and be serious about where you're putting your money and how much attention you're going to be putting into that. And, make sure you have the mindset for something like that. It's an entrepreneurial type thing. I think you have to be
Yep.
good at dealing with people. You could be in a situation where you bring in a woman who has two kids and then she doesn't pay her rent, and then you have to decide if you want to kick her out. It's just something that everybody has
Yeah.
to think about. So money wise, sure, but I like to mention the emotional side of it because I've seen how
Mhm.
difficult it can be to sustain, but I've
Yeah.
also seen it work. So I'll say that
Yeah.
as well.
Yep. Yeah. So it's not totally passive if you want to get into it. It's like I have a lot of
Exactly.
I have a lot of
Exactly.
clients always thinking, oh, should I buy a rental property, whatever. Actually, like, I mean, there's pros and cons. Just really know what you're getting into. Because, like, I have
Yeah.
a friend that actually bought a property. I forgot it was somewhere in the East Coast where it was much cheaper. It was $125,000 home. So then she her initial renter was very good for the first 2 years. Always paid the rent on time. She was profitable. Then her most recent renter, she had to kick the renter out because then she
Yeah.
wasn't taking care of the property. They were flushing stuff on the toilet, so there's plumbing issues. So she ended up having to kick the renter out. Plus, like she said, it flooded. There was a basement, so the basement flooded. And there was, the system wasn't made for a basement getting flooded. So she's now trying to get rid of the house. And she said, yeah.
Mhm.
I said, well, were you profitable this entire 3 years since owning it? She said no. She probably just broke even. So in a way that it might have you're just better off not owning it, right? But then like she didn't regret it because she learned it. Now she also want to try again. So just know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, I want to try to get into rental property here in Vegas once I buy my property. So anyway, so you're
Awesome.
saying that for most.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, no, I don't ever tell somebody not to do something. I just bring that side up, because I dealt with somebody who was making a lot of money. He was a super hard worker, probably working 70 hours a week. He had like 19 properties. I think he was 50. Had $1 million in his 401k. He was set. He was already ready, but he had 19 properties and he had six, vacant spots that he was always stressed about trying to fill. And while in his mind,
Yeah.
while he had sort of an asset, it was still like he pulled most of the equity out. He was still paying some of them off. So there's just a lot of things where it sounds like
Mhm.
somebody's just paying for a house for you, but there's more to
Mhm.
that. So just know the math, know what you're getting yourself into,
Mhm.
and realize it's a
Got it.
serious thing. It's right. It's not just passive income.
Got it.
Just yeah.
So you're saying for most people, a Roth account, traditional account, and individual account is probably good enough for most people, average people, for retirement.
Yes, as a
Okay.
basics, of course, every
Okay.
individual person, I would like to say, as a disclosure, has their own plan and needs their own thing, and everybody wants to set up, on their own way. But yeah, I at least look to spread it out to that point, at least to
Got it.
give somebody some diversification in terms of where they're putting their stuff.
Yep. So what do you think about annuities and those insurance products as a
Mhm.
retirement income source or even a reverse mortgage?
Yeah, so I think those are touchy subjects that do work out and can work in certain situations. And that's
Mhm.
why I'm always big on the planning process and figuring out what somebody needs because a reverse mortgage isn't the first thing I would tell somebody. But after you go through all the options, it does work out for some people who, like, we had a business owner who only had their house and they were dropping 50% of income because he didn't save enough. And then they're trying to figure out how to do it. So it's like maybe it fits into a certain situation, but it's not something that I would run out and tell everybody, like, make sure you're all looking at reverse mortgages. The same as
Mhm.
annuities, they,
Yep.
they fit the bill for some people. I
Yep.
think it's oversold, it's overrepresented as a one size fits all. But I think,
Mhm.
good advisors are doing a good job of displaying it. I think people are
Mhm.
getting smarter and realizing that there's a
Yeah.
process to be had, and don't just look at ads and things like that. Do too good to be
Exactly.
true usually is. No,
Mhm.
if you're confused in the first meeting, like, you're going to be confused in the next few meetings. So make sure
Mhm.
you understand exactly what you're getting into. So I
Yep.
believe in all that stuff, but it can get complicated, it can get muddy, and people can get taken advantage of. So that's why I'm big on the
Good.
planning process.
All right. My friend Timothy is asking how does he feel about investing yourself into mutual funds, ETFs, and stocks?
Yeah. So obviously, again, I'll say as a one-off, everybody's different. I'm not sure about individualized stuff. I'm a big,
Hmm.
I could say, ETF guy.
Hmm.
Also believe in individual stocks as well, as long as you're, choosing them right. But I like ETFs because they're low cost and passively managed, and that's something I believe in the
Yep.
market. That I'm not trying to time it, and I think that
Mhm.
costs go a lot farther than people realize, and it eats away at your stuff a little bit. So, and most people are, if you're picking a mutual fund, you're hoping that the person you're handing the extra money to is going to be outperforming something they're matching against. So I think the concept for me is that I don't hate mutual funds by any means, but I feel comfortable with ETFs because I feel like they do a similar job for a lower cost.
Exactly, exactly. I'm also into that, and also I do mainly target date funds now. If I get lazy about buying individual ETF, okay, sounds good. This is really great. So let's what about for self-employed, like like me? What would be the main difference between them into trying to fund their retirement? So we have to open our own solo 401k, right? Actually, I haven't done that yet, but so I've just been funding my Roth IRA, just not necessarily the solo 401k. Yeah, you're self-employed too. So how are you preparing for your own retirement as a self-employed?
So this can be big too in terms of setting up your own, whether you want to go Roth IRA, depends on how much you're making and kind of eat the tax now or pay it later. Because I think the two big things are you can put either into your Roth 401k, or you obviously can do a simple or something like that. But the other side is the SEP IRA, which saves you from the taxes. But it's the match of the traditional IRA. So I think it depends on each individual person, and you can't have a SEP and a 401k at the same time. So it's a decision to make kind of at the beginning. But I like the idea of leaning into the Roth still, even though I know we're paying heavier taxes, just because
Yep,
I like the idea of having full control of my money later. So as much as we have the
exactly.
conversation and calculating it, I realize that I'm going to be working. We're all working for about 30 years and retired for hopefully about 30. So using that money, I think even though it's at a lower tax bracket, it's a lower tax bracket for possibly longer than we've been working. And that eats away at your money and the net calculated gain at the end. I always feel more comfortable with the Roth. But we don't know the laws, so that's why I also mentioned the three buckets, because I'm not so arrogant to say I know what the taxes are going to be. They could change the Roth, and I know that's a lot of things people say is what if they change a law that affects the Roth and how you can displace it. But that's why I say, I look at Roths, I look at SEPs, traditional 401ks, and things like that.
Exactly. And with Roth, then you don't have to worry about RMD, right? So then it's
Exactly.
all tax free, and then you can get, I believe you can get all your contribution out anytime, right?
Yeah.
For people who want to take out their contribution, I mean, it's their job to pretty much track the cost basis, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
would talk, and when I'm talking to people, that's usually why I'm big on the Roth and trying to get it into your Roth, because there's the access to it. When you put it into the Roth 401k, it's different where you can't just grab it out. So if you put it into your Roth IRA, then you can access your contributions. And that's a big thing that I like to mention to people, because it's sometimes access to your money is really important when all you're counting on is your savings. I never suggest people pull out of your investments, but it would be nice if you had to, if you could grab from a place where you weren't also hit tax wise and penalty wise.
Got it. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a lot of stuff for that. I love the talking about this stuff. So why don't
Mhm.
do you have any more message for people trying to think about retirement and stuff like that before we start talking about your advisor talk show host? Because I'm also interested to talk more about this show, the talk show host you have almost every
Mhm.
day.
Yeah. So I guess I would just say usually people are doing much better than they think and everything is okay. It's just about getting a few things in a row. But I do think the little tweaks can make a big difference. And I
Mhm.
think, for example, if I meet somebody who is all pre tax and I start telling them that we can't, they had an IRA as well. So maybe we couldn't do a real backdoor Roth IRA, but we could start doing some conversions at her current tax rate at where she was, still would benefit her based on how we calculated that she was going to retire in 10 years. So I think the earlier you can get in, the better. I think seeing a fee for service planner or somebody you can pay a fee for a financial plan gets your ducks in a row in front of you and lets you at least see where you are. So if you're at least nervous or questioning it, I would look for somebody like that, because they can give you an objective view on what's going on and at least make you feel comfortable about a few steps moving forward. And it doesn't mean a forever relationship. It doesn't mean you have to hand over money. It just means you get to see what retirement's going to look like for you. And I think that's the benefit and that's the value that people should look for when they're looking for
Okay.
a financial advisor.
So generally, how what is your formula for figuring out if someone has enough money to retire on?
So we're looking at, how much they have, how much they're spending, and looking
Mhm.
like we don't want people to have to go back. Of course, people can downsize and do stuff, and that's part of the plan. That's okay. But I like to plan in terms of let's not pretend that you're going to have to go backwards in lifestyle and you have this mindset of this finite amount of money. So
Yep,
that's why I say the earlier the better. I want people to be able to
exactly.
prepare so they can live the same lifestyle. And again, why I believe in the Roth and developing this tax allocation that makes you feel comfortable of grabbing the right buckets at the right time. Just because it allows you to have access to your money, when you need it, and gives you a little bit of diversity. So, you
Mhm.
can sell things at the right time and play that game so that you're living the same lifestyle even after you retire.
Yeah, when I do my retirement planning, for my clients or for myself, like it's based on like pretty much their lifestyle. What is your cost of living? And most people like they generally will keep the same lifestyle, maybe minus kids, but then so it's based on that, adding the inflation rate, and then like what I did mine is basically like on a very conservative rate of return of what I have right now. The traditional, the Roth, and then the individual, and I use 4% rate of return. It's very conservative, and I did an
Mhm.
inflation rate of 2% based on my cost of living annually, then just do 2% till like whenever I'm gonna officially retire. Although I don't think I'll ever retire because I love what I do, so I'm gonna do
Mhm.
it whenever. But I just did 70. I'm gonna stop taking clients, and from 70 till 90. So I think you kind of make fun of me when I say I'm gonna do till 90. It's like, why did you live till 90? I said, okay, maybe not. I think I might just
Yeah.
do something else to like go bye bye, go to heaven. But so I just
Oh
did that.
no.
So I'm not against assisted suicide. So anyway, so that's me because then I don't my family
Yeah.
don't live very long. So I just did
Yeah.
70 to
That's
90.
a whole different stream. Um, I think one
Yeah.
of the most interesting things at the very beginning is like I always try to take it as long as possible and say like we can be realistic and tone it back. If people I always go farther and let people say, oh, my parents only lived this long, pull me back to 87. But I don't ever want to be the person where I'm like, all right, let's take it to 85 and go from there. You know what I mean? I always try to push it
Yeah.
long, and
Yeah.
part of the thing of planning and say, let's make sure
Yeah.
your money lasts this
Yeah.
long, because you never want to run out. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
that's
no.
that's
Even with 90, I still have at least $1 million for now. So I think like whoever's gonna be lucky, because I don't plan to have kids. So whoever's gonna be a lucky beneficiary, maybe my nieces or maybe
Oh
nephews. So
yeah,
they'll be the lucky
yeah.
one later on. So
You're
even
gonna
for
notice
now,
them
past
sucking up
90.
around the holidays and things and calling you a
Like,
little bit
oh,
more after,
all
yeah,
right, all right. Okay, they're
after they
listening
watch
to
this stream. You're gonna get a holiday card. You're gonna get a Christmas card right after this. You watch.
Well, they don't know my address, so
Yeah,
maybe that's easy to find. So,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
So let's go to the fun part. So, it's like, yeah, tell me more about it. When did you start this financial advisor show? Was it when you interviewed me? Was that already a financial advisor show, or like this is new? So, just tell us more about this talk show host you have.
Yeah, so in September, when I officially left LPL, when I was saying I was
Oh.
exploring like the RIA space, just
Mm-hmm.
moving from one to the next, I wasn't able to do kind of this marketing company that I really wanted to do. It just wasn't approved. So it was something that the show started in September when I officially left, and and we've been doing it. I forget when we started every day officially. I think it was a couple weeks in, or a month or so in, a couple months in. So it's only been every day for probably the last month or so. But it's where we talk about business and marketing advice. And while pieces of it probably help everybody, it's focused for financial advisors just because that's what my world is and what I feel most comfortable speaking on.
Mm-hmm. Wait, I didn't realize you left LPL. So you start your own company and your own RIA company?
Or not started my own. I'm actually still housing under somebody. So it's similar to to LPL. Really, you just have to park somewhere and be
Mm,
registered. So I'll be registered with the state, and it'll make me at a fiduciary capacity. It gives me a little bit more flexibility
mhm.
business wise. So it's really like a business and personal decision for advisors, I think, when they're doing that, depending on what they think
Got it.
about marketing and where they want to go and what they want to do. And
Got
it's just
it.
a comfortable model that I liked and wanted to. I always wanted to move to. So I finally just made the jump. And at the same time, it allowed me the flexibility to do this advisor show and do something that I also
Mhm,
loved when I was working with a small business, which was marketing. And I was kind of like the operator of figuring out how things go. So I share the
mhm.
processes that I learned and the things that we built that added to the planning process that I was just talking about, that adds value to people that other planners don't do. And kind of help advisors market. I think by helping people with your LinkedIn coaching that a lot of people seem to have a little bit of fear about posting or have
Yeah,
overthinking a lot involved in that.
exactly.
So I like to bring some, I guess, some clarity and some message into what advisors should be posting and help them navigate the compliance and little stuff that
Mhm.
is in the advisor world. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk about that. So it's like, so how are you helping your the advisors with marketing, and then like, what do you think of LinkedIn so far? And then if like an advisor just started on LinkedIn, what would you advise them to do to actually expand their world on LinkedIn? And then actually, let's get started with first, how has LinkedIn helped you? Have you found clients on LinkedIn? And then let's talk about how an initial advisor who just come on LinkedIn, how can they use LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Let's start with
absolutely.
you first.
So with me, I felt like I was a better networker. So I use social media to pull off relationships, and I was able to get clients by using a podcast and getting referrals and things like that and building my network. And I, while it was still social, I wasn't grabbing people from different states like I've heard other advisors doing. So that's something that I'm still learning from other people so that I can share from other advisors. But for me, I like to use social media to still keep it local and develop relationships with whether it be CPAs or with attorneys, and have a podcast that provided value to people that would maybe come in through the podcast or some other channel. But I use social media to kind of like, again, reach out and build those relationships rather than door knocking or cold calling, and able to build like a referral network. And then our process that it came into, our business process, was where I felt like what I loved was client services and treating people right and fairly, and then being honest and giving people the relationship I felt like they were looking for from an advisor. And those two things together is where I feel like we found success.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so for someone who just initially come on LinkedIn, an advisor
Mhm.
especially, let's talk specific about advisors. Like, I mean, what advice would you give them on how to get started on LinkedIn and how to utilize LinkedIn? What's the mindset around LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So I like it to be about, first thing I would say is look at like the box you can play with, right? Because there's different advisors. I came from LPL. You have a lot of flexibility. You can just do videos right away that
Mm,
you can post without having to go through compliance. But if you may be with Edward Jones, you may be living in the comments. So it depends where you're hosted. Similar to me going to an RIA, everybody has a little different rules. So I find out where maybe your rules are as an advisor, and then tell you where to play, like within that sandbox. Because that's the problem, is a lot of us are so constricted that it's hard to figure out what avenue to attack and how do I build a brand when I can barely say anything. So I like to tell a lot of people to build a personal aspect. I say at the very least, build a personal aspect, share some things about yourself, because some of us can't talk about finance, and then use your LinkedIn profile kind of like a web page that people refer back to. But don't be afraid to talk about the activities that you do and the things that you like, and just understand that compliance will slow you down, but it can't stop you. There's nothing else you're able to do. So whatever you can talk about, you have to talk about. So start by
mhm.
building relationships, talk about yourself, talk about what you know. And if you're 25 and you're just getting started, you have to find your voice and find who you're talking to, which is really difficult because you're just getting through your 7 and your CFP and you're trying to find who that is. But an example that I have is like, an advisor came from a family full of engineers. So he speaks the engineer lingo. He thinks like an engineer in the same way that my wife is a pharmacist. So I may talk to more pharmacists and understand what district leaders go through and understand their language and maybe the equity compensation that they get and things like that. So he can understand an engineer's world. So I tell him, start focusing on engineers, that make your content about that, start focusing on that person. So if you have that niche, if you can focus on that, I would hone in on that,
Yep.
because in a world where you're talking to everybody, it's too
Mhm,
difficult to compete on the internet by saying
mhm.
things like spend less than you make and like the general stuff. I believe that
Yeah.
for advisors, and that's from my personal experience of failure, of realizing that I had to start honing in to really getting people's attention.
Exactly. So focus on personal branding, because like I think some people are like, they see someone, oh my God, they're getting like 1,000 likes or whatever, like then they try to copy that person. But the thing is
Yeah,
that it's working for their personal branding. That's
right.
not necessarily your voice. So you have to find your own unique voice. What are your strengths? So if you're really good at video, then do video. If you're really good at writing, then do text. And then if you're
Right.
really good with picture, then I mean you should explore all the different type of content types, but then like you majority of your stuff will be based on, what are you really good at, what's your gift. So I mean, like with video, I'm not very good video editor, right? So that's why LinkedIn Live works, because it's live. I mean, we don't do any editing, so this is how it is. So we
Boom.
don't
It's just
yeah.
out there. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't filter anything here, Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
So, okay. Oh, Nick said, "Hey, Christine, you have a great one tonight. Ryan is one of the absolute best parts of the industry. See, you already have a fan, Ryan."
Yeah, Nick's
Nick
awesome.
Nick is
One of
actually
my favorite people that I've met on LinkedIn by far.
exactly, and then he was on my I mean, my guest last week, so that was great. Okay, so
I've learned
this
strategies from Nick myself. Super smart guy, like really, and I've learned a lot from him from the business side as well as LinkedIn. He's an amazing person to follow for financial advisors who, he's just a great person to look and learn from. So if anybody's
exactly.
looking for somebody, he's good.
Exactly. And marketing too. I think Nick figured out how to market on LinkedIn as well. It's not cold
For
selling,
sure.
whatever. It's about giving value. Cause like even when I have clients who come to me, like always think about what value you can provide your clients, because it's not about you. It's really about them. Like what kind of value can you provide them?
Yeah.
So what is gonna be based on your personal branding. So for me, like you have to identify what your personal branding is. So for me, I want people to know me based on the money expert, and then like also I want them to get to know me, like, like I'm like based on what I want them to think about me. Like, I can make them laugh, and then I can inspire them. So I share them inspiring stories about my life, my business, how I
Hmm.
become an entrepreneur. Like today, I just posted something about, my life as an entrepreneur. It's been 4 years now, and I'm still very grateful. So yeah,
Wow.
focus on your
Congratulations.
Thank you. Focus on your personal branding. What do you want to be known for? List five things. Like when people think about you, like who's Christine Tay, who's Ryan, right? So don't copy. I mean, get ideas and inspiration from people, but don't copy their style, because that's who they are. It's like you're trying to copy people's personality. You can't copy them. You have to embrace who you are and figure what works for you. So yeah,
Right.
awesome.
Completely
Okay,
agree. And it's a talent game a little bit, right? Like I always like to say
Mhm.
that. I like to add that in. I think a lot of people are looking for either a silver bullet or techniques, and there's certain things you can do. But at the end of the day, it's you, and you have to realize how good you're going to be on social media, which is how much time you put into it, how much
Mhm.
charisma or personality you have. Are you funny? Are you
Exactly.
interesting? How much
Exactly.
time do you spend on distribution? There's people
Exactly.
that some people consider boring, but they work so hard that they get noticed and they're
Mhm.
established
Mhm.
and things like that. So like personal
Mhm.
brand goes very far. It really does.
Exactly. So if you want to grow on LinkedIn, you have to be consistent. So unfortunately, I'm not a good role model now since I moved here to Vegas, because I haven't been on LinkedIn as much. But when I got started, how it just
Casinos,
what?
the casinos.
No, I don't gamble. I don't drink. I'm just like try. I just enjoying my life here in the new city, and I love it here. So
Nice.
so
Good.
no gambling, no drinking. So
Good.
so okay.
Yeah.
So where was I? You distracted me. Okay. So
Yeah. Sorry.
basically, I was saying, so if you get started on LinkedIn, so you have to be very consistent. So I work really hard. Like every day I showed up, I spent 2 hours on LinkedIn. I was doing a lot of front end, like posting and backing, because you have to really interact. You have to socialize, because it is a social media network. If you're just like, like being a wallpaper, just like browsing, and you're not interacting, you're not really utilizing LinkedIn. So you have to be out there. You have to show up. You have to be consistent. So you have to earn people's trust. That they have to like you, know you, and trust you. So those three things. Okay. All right. So do you have anything else to share to people here about, I guess marketing in general, or whatever you want to share else about your financial advisor? So you're always interviewing people, right? Monday to Friday, one guest every day.
It's not guests every day, so sometimes it's just
Okay.
us, my partner Corey and I. But we do have a
Okay.
guest tomorrow, which is Kristen
Okay.
Shea, which is
Okay.
cool. And then we have Mitch Goldberg on Friday, which will be cool. So we have guests every once in a while, whether it be advisors or other marketers or
Okay.
people that we want to bring on just to add value to the
Got it.
community of some sort. So similar to what you're doing here is what we're doing. And we have it doing every morning, and it's something that I'm still kind of
Wow.
testing.
Yeah.
It's hard to develop content every morning, but it's really fun.
Exactly.
I notice some
Yeah.
people can't come on a Monday; they can come on a Tuesday. So while it feels haphazard to me, I hope it at least provides a lot of value to people. So it's fun to do.
Yeah.
So if I had to leave anything with anybody, I would say most people underestimate the amount of hard work that comes into developing your personal brand, because there is a sense of failure that comes from finding your voice and finding your rhythm on there. So I think a lot of people you see who have been successful for a long time have spent possibly a year on here or more months. And you're always going to read that story about people who grew in a couple months and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people who are fumbling through for a year and then they started to hit their stride after 6 months. And then the last year they really took off. And you see that, and people see the end result of success and forget that that person's been on LinkedIn for maybe 3 years. Again, not always the case, but I would just realize that it is hard, and most people should realize that and understand the thing that you it's just putting in work like anything else. So there's always
Yeah.
techniques you can use, but marketing and personal branding to earn the respect of your community takes time, because you have to understand them, and that takes time.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, so how do you come up with topics or content every day, 5 days a week?
Sometimes
Give
in the
some
morning
tips.
we're texting back and forth. It's terrible. We're getting better. So what I'm going to start doing now is doing something simple of going into a Google search and figuring out what advisors are looking for, and try to bring the hot topics that I think people care about. Try to grab questions from our group of MCO advisors, if other advisors I talk to, whether it be on Zoom or chats that I have in situations they have. It feels like endless content, but you're right. When you're talking about something every day, and one of the mistakes that we have is not staying on topic. So we go from one topic to the next, then we accidentally ask two, and then we have to come up with more topics throughout the day. But it always goes somewhere. Once we start chatting, I think we always end up getting into a good conversation of what's going on. And then what I love about it is that it's interactive. So if anybody has any questions, that usually gets the show going. If somebody asks a question, then we can start interacting, similar to here. And then the show kind of takes care of itself. So that's what I hope for, is that people ask more questions.
So is it LinkedIn Live? Like what platform are you on?
Yeah, exactly the same as the StreamYard.
Oh, okay,
And we
okay.
go on LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and YouTube.
Got
And
it.
I've been messing with Instagram, but I can't get the video to show. It shows like the middle of it, and I
Yeah, yeah,
can't
yeah.
figure it out. It
Yeah,
crushes me. So I
yeah,
just stick to the three. And
yeah,
but it's the most popular on LinkedIn,
yeah.
where I've developed more of a personal brand, I think.
What time do you come on live?
9:30 a.m. Eastern. And this is where I would like some feedback, because we're cutting out the West Coast. And I know we're doing that because
Eastern,
it's so
6:30
early. Yeah,
a.m.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So that's
I
where,
don't get up
yeah,
till 8 a.m. So that's
yeah,
will
yeah,
be
yeah.
too early.
So I'm thinking, like, we were testing some night shows, and we did one on
Okay,
Thanksgiving, which was really fun. And I
okay.
guess I'd like to hear from your aspect. Do you find success in doing the night show like this, because you can grab both people and kind of dinner, and it's not too late, right? It's only like almost 9.
Yeah, and then you actually had a lot of people show up, 15 people. The highest I saw was around 15. So what I found out for me, yeah, that's why everything is nighttime. So I do 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. PST, and I kind of let the
Mhm.
guests pick the time that works for them.
Right.
But I do
Mhm.
notice like Friday 5 p.m. PST is was the busiest for me. Friday or Saturday morning, because like Friday because it's they're done with their work, and then Saturday it's a weekend. So but that's for me, but that's my audience, so you have to try what your audience is like. So but so far,
Mhm.
and then, but there are some days wherein like it's only a handful, like 5 people, so it really
Yeah.
depends like who's
Same.
online, so you can't really
Maybe,
control. Yeah.
maybe it's no different. Maybe it's whether it's morning or it's night. I think the
Hmm.
consistency, like we were just talking about, brings the people in, and when people know what
Hmm.
time it's going to be, it adds to it.
Yeah,
So I still want
yeah,
to test it a little bit, but and I don't like cutting out the West Coast, but it's hard to do it in the middle of the day when people are trying to
yeah.
do it at lunch. So it was
I
like either morning or night, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
I'm wanting to test both.
Yeah, I would do morning or night. At nighttime, at least morning, that's the hard part. You're only gonna pick up people who are early riser on the West Coast, and then nighttime, at least you can pick up both sides. It doesn't matter if they're early
Yeah.
riser. So you don't have the bedtime as issue, because sometimes some people go to bed late, wake up early. So if you do it between, like I said, 4 to 6 p.m. like PST, like PST Eastern, like you at least like that's kind of during the middle of the day. You're probably not gonna get people who have weird schedule, but that's kind of more a one-off thing. So yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate this, and I'm so glad I got to finally have you on my live. So
Absolutely. I knew we would get it. I knew it would work. And I had so much fun, as I do always. We got to talk once before, so I knew this would be a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me on.
yeah, so tell let everyone know how can people find you.
Yeah, if you're watching me here on LinkedIn, feel free to shoot me a message. If you have a question, I think that would be the easiest way. And yeah, why don't you just shoot me a message? I'm always here. I'm available. I pay attention a lot to my LinkedIn. I'm here all the time. I'm happy to answer your questions. Anything you got?
Yeah. So I just tag you so people can click on it and then connect with you if they want to. So Ryan,
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming. I know it's probably late, 5, 6. It's almost 9 o'clock there, right?
Yeah, my daughter. I mean, my wife is doing all the work with both kids. So
Oh,
this
okay.
is a break for me and an escape. And if we could just keep this live going for like another 10 minutes, that would be awesome. No, I'm just kidding. I should probably go help her, but I do. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And anybody who wants to reach out to me, feel free to. But again,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for staying up late at night to join me. So I really appreciate this and for sharing, your knowledge. So thank you so much, Ryan. Have a good night. Okay,
Thanks. You
bye
too. Bye.
everyone.
Bye.